You see that shiny chrome everywhere, right? On your car, maybe even your kitchen faucet. It just screams quality and toughness. But what if I told you there's a really dark side to all that shine? A danger to people and the planet. So let's get into it, because the whole story of chrome is changing in a huge and honestly, a really necessary way.
Yeah, for decades, getting that perfect mirror finish meant using a chemical with a pretty nasty secret. And now, the industry has no choice but to face it head on.
All right, so let's get right to the heart of the problem. If we want to understand this huge revolution happening in the coatings world, we've got to meet the villain of the story.
And here it is, hexavalent chromium. You'll hear it called Chrom 6. For ages, this stuff was the go-to ingredient for hard chrome plating. And it works really well, but the science is in, and it's also just incredibly, incredibly dangerous. So the real question is, how dangerous are we talking? Like, really?
Okay, so this is where it gets genuinely scary. Look at what this stuff, Chrom 6, does to the human body. It's a proven carcinogen. I mean, it can literally get inside your cells and mess with your DNA. That's what causes cancer. Think about the people working in these plating factories. For them, exposure can lead to serious lung damage, awful skin sores, even permanent damage to their organs. That is a hell of a price to pay for a shiny bumper, right?
And it's not just the workers who are at risk. The danger absolutely does not stop at the factory door. The whole process pumps out hazardous fumes that get into the environment. We're talking soil, groundwater, you name it. On top of that, you're left with this toxic sludge, this nasty wastewater that's a nightmare and super expensive to clean up.
So when you've got risks this big, you know the authorities are going to step in eventually. And they did. That pressure from regulators really lit a fire under the industry and became the catalyst for a huge, huge shift. And you can see here, this wasn't just one country. It was a global crackdown. Look at Europe. They basically flagged it as a substance of very high concern and started phasing it out. Here in the US, the EPA and OSHA came down hard, with strict limits on everything from factory emissions to how much workers could be exposed to. The message was loud and clear. All over the world, the party's over for hexavalent chromium. So all that pressure, it kicked off this incredible race. But it wasn't about killing the industry. No, it was about forcing it to completely reinvent itself, literally from the ground up. I mean, think about it. That's the billion-dollar question, right? What do you do when the one key ingredient your entire business is built on is suddenly getting banned? Well, the answer turned out to be innovation. So let's take a look at what these new techs actually are. Yeah, when faced with like a total existential threat, scientists and engineers got to work. And they came up with some truly incredible new ways to make these tough, protective coatings, just without all the toxic baggage.
Okay, so check this out. One of the top contenders is something called electroless nickel-phosphorus, or just NIP. The comparison here is just, wow. You swap out that super carcinogenic CRVI for a way safer nickel-phosphorus mix. The waste is a breeze to manage in comparison, and get this, in a lot of cases, it's actually tougher than traditional chrome. So it's safer and it works better. That's a huge win.
All right, another total game changer is PVD, which stands for Physical Vapor Deposition. The big deal here is how it's done. Old school chroming uses these big vats, a wet chemical bath, right? And that's where you get all the toxic fumes and nasty wastewater. But PVD, it's a totally dry process, which means, boom, no more airborne CRV and way less waste to deal with. So the perks of PVD are pretty obvious. You get this super hard, super durable surface that fights off corrosion like a champ, and you do it all without the toxic chemicals. Now let's be real, it's not a perfect solution, yet. The equipment costs more, and it can be a little slower. But hey, those are just engineering puzzles, and people are working on solving them as we speak.
So, where does all this innovation leave us? What does it all add up to?
Well, it's nothing short of a fundamental shift in how an entire global industry works. It's creating a whole new normal, one that's way safer and way more sustainable.
And this is a really important point. This change isn't just being forced by regulators from the top. There's this quote from some researchers, Magsudi, Mohammadi, and Bakhtiari, that points out that we, as consumers, are also pushing for this. We're demanding greener, more responsible products. And that 1-2 punch of government rules and customer demand, that is a seriously powerful combo for change.
So if you take a step back, you realize this isn't really just a story about chrome. It's like a template. It's a perfect example of how facing up to safety concerns and putting tough rules in place doesn't have to kill an industry. In fact,
It can be the exact opposite. It can be the spark that fires up incredible innovation and progress.
It really gets you thinking, doesn't it? This whole story with chrome proves that we can literally engineer our way out of these problems and into a safer world. And it leaves you with this really hopeful but also challenging question. What's next? What other toxic materials are all around us, just one breakthrough away from being replaced for good?